Right, good morning. This is Carol Hoyle on the Advanced Counselling Diploma, and the date is 24th of July 2023, and I'm meeting this morning with Sue. So, morning Sue.
Morning.
And thank you so much for agreeing to let me record this. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, so let's hope it works, but hopefully we'll just ignore this and carry on having a conversation as we would do normally. So I think it's been a little while since we met, with holidays and other interruptions. So how have things been since we last spoke?
They've been okay, thanks. I was quite relieved for the first time just to begin sort of the process of getting things off my chest. That helped quite a bit. I felt better after we had our first session. I know we didn't cover that much, but it was just really good to get started. So that was all really positive, but I have to say, to be honest, I felt a bit worse since. I'm not quite sure why that is. I sort of expected I might feel better after the first session, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. It just felt a bit worse, really. I don't know why that would be.
Okay. Do you think that was just initially, or has it been since we spoke?
I think since we spoke, really. I don't know whether it's maybe just it brings things to the fore that you're trying not to think about. But yeah, I felt a little bit down really since we met. Sort of, on one level, I'm quite happy to have got started, and I really want to see this through. I know it's the right thing to do. But I was quite surprised that I felt a bit kind of, I don't know, just a bit weird really afterwards.
I think that's probably quite a normal reaction. Our feelings are our feelings, and sometimes when you actually voice something, perhaps initially it makes it seem more real. And taking the brave step to come and talk about things that are bothering you is also a way of making things seem quite real and become more of an issue than perhaps we've buried them sometimes before. So I think that you were in quite a bit of turmoil at work, really, weren't you, with lots of changes going on that were out of your control, really. So has any of that settled since then?
No, not really. My feeling is probably that it's not really going to settle, particularly. I think, I don't know, it's just a strange thing. I think maybe it's just that I'm going to have to find my own ways of dealing with it, and that's sort of maybe what I'm hoping to get out of this, this process of counselling. I can't see the circumstances really changing, but I'm hoping to change maybe how I deal with them and the impact on me, because the impact's been really quite considerable, and I don't think I can really keep that going in the long term.
No. What would you say you noticed particularly about the impact? Does it impact you physically or mentally or both?
Both, yeah. So, it's quite hard to unpick what's work and what's other stuff, I suppose, but I think my stomach's quite often in a lot of turmoil. I find I'm not quite eating as I used to, can't quite stomach the same sorts of foods. I come home really exhausted, so that obviously impacts your family life. I just haven't really got much of an appetite for the things that I enjoy doing, all the sort of things I would do in my spare time. Just not really that bothered. And quite a lot of other physical symptoms that I suppose are stress related, heart whacking around and sleep. There's lots of impact, but it's difficult to unpick what's what really, to be honest.
And that's been going on for a little while now, hasn't it?
And
So I think when we last spoke, you were at the point where you the temporary role that you've been fulfilling as a manager. You weren't quite sure what was going to happen next with that, and whether you wanted it or didn't want it to continue. There's a lot of uncertainty around that, isn't there? Which very often does create anxiety in certain things. What are your thoughts now about where you want to go with that, or has that changed at all?
I think I think you're right. I think it's good to make a decision and be clear, because that does get rid of a lot of the stress and anxiety. I think my feeling is that I do want to go for it, but I'm quite worried about whether that would have an increased impact on me and all the things I've just described. But I think overall my instinct is to go for it and see what happens. But I've got to learn to manage, the impact better. I've just got to do that. Otherwise, again, I can't really keep that up in the longer term.
So looking for some sort of supporting strategies that would help you when you've got the pressures that come with the role.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah,
I think so.
So usually, I think when we were chatting, you would find some of those support for yourself in like physical activities and things like that. But you're saying you've not really felt motivated to do that.
No, I mean, I have been doing it. I have kept it up, but that's, what's changed is the wanting to do it. So it's more just deciding to get on with it, but I haven't really wanted to, and that's been quite a difference, which is worrying me slightly, because it's not really me. But I'm still keeping it up. I am still keeping it up, but finding that it's more of a challenge to do that. Yeah,
so you're kind of making yourself do it because you know it's good for you, rather than having that motivation that you would do just because you enjoy it. I think that's a positive thing, because you recognising that you do enjoy it and it is good for you, and I'm sure with time, you'll perhaps find if you stop doing it altogether, I think you'd probably feel a bit worse from losing that element, because it is a relief from stress, isn't it? If you do enjoy physical activity and getting out and about and things like that. So what's the situation now in terms of the role becoming permanent? Has anything been decided there?
That's still very much in the balance. I mean, I think it's there for me to have if I want to have it. But I think at the moment I've been planning to do a trial run with it. But we'll see how that goes. But at least that's resolved itself a little bit. So, there has been long-term uncertainty about the role. But now that has potentially resolved itself. But
so you wouldn't have to go through a recruitment process?
I don't think so. But unfortunately with my employer, it's a bit difficult to explain to somebody who's never worked there, but it's very difficult to explain. But they move the goalposts all the time, and what's told to you 1 minute isn't necessarily what happens the next minute. So as far as I understand it at the moment, no recruitment process, but that could change, and that's also quite a stress, because you feel like you can't really trust what you're told. You feel like things may change without warning. And sometimes you feel taken advantage of. So I don't quite trust the process. But no, as far as I'm aware, no recruitment process. But
because that in itself adds an additional pressure when it's a role that you've been doing successfully for quite a long time. If you then have to go through the process of being tested to see if you're able to do that role.
Yes.
Because there's always an element of fear that you might not pass the test, or what their motivation is, I suppose.
Yes, that's right, and that's worse than if you haven't done it at all, isn't it? So that's extra pressure.
So perhaps once you've got a resolution to that situation, some of that uncertainty and anxiety will be alleviated. In that there would be a recognition of your work and that you've been doing a good job for quite a long time, if I remember rightly now. So yes, to not get it at the end of that would be, and I guess you've got a little bit of a self-defence mechanism going on with the I don't know whether I want it or not kind of thing in the event that might be a scenario.
You can hedge your bets then, can't you?
I suppose so, yeah, definitely, yeah. So you were talking last time, I think, about if you take the role on a trial basis, which has now they've now agreed to do.
Yes.
Yeah. You would be going to a different location to work?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And that obviously brings with it a new set of challenges. So potentially the good aspect of that is it's a change. It's a new challenge. You know, that could potentially be a very positive thing. So I can see that. What's less positive is the time and the effort and the expense of commuting, which would be a considerable commute, not enormous but considerable. And you know, the general impact of that on, you know, all the things I've already mentioned. It's an added stress potentially, but maybe not. That's why it needs to be tried to you know, find out whether it works or not.
So it sounds like most of the potential barriers are logistical and not not linked to your confidence in your ability to fulfil the role.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm fairly confident I could fulfil the role, but it's difficult to know, isn't it? Every time you go to a new place, you know, things change and the role is a bit different. But no, I don't think I'm particularly concerned about that. I think that should be all right. But I'm more concerned about the impact on my overall energy and and all the other things I have to deal with outside of work. Because, you know, I know we haven't really spoken about this very much last week. We didn't really have time, but you know, I do have other challenges outside of work that impact how I feel and all that sort of thing. So that's a big concern for me. You've got to look at your life as an overall package.
You have, which is probably good that you're going to take on the role on a temporary basis, so you've got a chance to try it out really and see how that does impact and how you balance things, you know, with the rest of what's going on. Because I think from what you're saying, it sounds like you feel quite positive about the new challenge, but you've got a little hesitation about the impact that would have, both logistically, financially, and you know, those kind of things, but also in terms of time, with everything else you're juggling with at the moment. At
the end of the day, it's earlier mornings, you know, it's later coming home, it's less free time, and you know, just harder work. But you know, I can see the benefits of a commute. It's time where you can think, it's time where you can process things, isn't it? So I can see there are some advantages. But,
as long as you don't be on your phone in the car.
Yes. Absolutely.
You've got quite a bit of thinking time. Some people like that, don't they, as a switch off time, the start and end of the day, or gearing up. Especially, I think, if you've got a lot of other stuff going on, you know, that you're dealing with outside of work, aren't you? So I think your situation with your mum was a little bit up and down last time we spoke as well, wasn't it? Has that settled at all?
No, not really. And you know, that's obviously a major concern because you know, she obviously lives at distance, and there's always a conflict of interest there, you know, where you can't just pop in and pop out on a daily basis and keep an eye on things. So you're constantly questioning where your priorities are, where you should be, you know. I mean, obviously if you're employed, your priority is your job, but your priority is also your family, and those two things can come into conflict. So that's a big source of stress, I think, for me, sometimes quite subconsciously. So no, that's not really resolved. So that's another reason, I suppose, to take my time with the decision.
Because that's something that you can't change, isn't it? The situation that you're with, and it's a tough one, isn't it? You've just got to deal with it. But I think the distance involved makes it even more difficult, because you can't just pop in, you know, every 5 minutes or whatever, can you? You've got to make a big trip, sort of thing. When you say it affects you subconsciously, what kind of emotions spring to the fore there?
Oh, that's a good question. I wouldn't say. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is guilt, but I don't think I do feel guilty because I know I'm doing my best in the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's too strong a word, guilt. I think it's more. I think it's more the stress of working out where my priorities are at any given moment or week or weekend. Again, it's the whole package of managing your life and where you should be spending your time and energy. And obviously I wish that I was there with my mum a lot more. I really wish I could be, but I'm not, and like you say, that isn't going to change. So I can't do anything about that. But it's not an ideal situation, and I suppose you quite often chew away at situations that aren't ideal, don't you? They kind of niggle at you. So I think it's a niggle in the background, probably.
Well, it clearly has a big impact on your well-being, doesn't it? Because you're juggling that against, some challenges at work at the moment, aren't you? So
that's right.
And it sounds like you feel like your number one priority is your family, even though there isn't much more you could be doing than you already do, and even if you weren't working, probably there wouldn't be a huge deal more you can do. It's just one of those challenges that you have to be aware that that's going to stick with you for a while, and it's how do you manage that against all the other things, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So that does affect me. I mean, obviously in terms of other things outside of work, that's a lot easier now. The children have gone.
Yeah.
So, and my husband is, quite self-sufficient really with his music, etc.
Yeah,
so that's not really a major concern, but it can still have an impact, on that relationship if you're not careful. Everybody has a line over which they, don't want to go in terms of stress, don't they? And so I can't take that for granted. You've still got to maintain, your close relationships, haven't you, and give them time and energy. You can't just take for granted that they're elastic the whole time.
Yeah, and I guess that feels that you're pulled a lot, aren't you, in different directions, and you're doing the best you can for everybody. But you're bearing the brunt of it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just as we're talking now, I think one of the big things that's concerning me, and maybe one of the things that's driven me to come to this, to ask for counselling, is, like I said at the beginning, I just feel a bit weird, and a bit unmotivated, which isn't like me, and I find myself thinking about work sometimes. I just can't be bothered. And that's not me really, and that's not a particularly good or positive feeling. And sometimes I go to a day at work and I look at all the hurly-burly of a day at work and the relationships at work and the things that are happening again. And rather than facing them head on and dealing with them now, sometimes I just think, can't be bothered. And that worries me a little bit because I've got to be bothered. Not having the money is not an option at the moment. And that's a new feeling, and it's not really like me. And I think possibly that is probably one of the big reasons I've come to you. It's a bit of a warning sign, that to me. I can't quite pin down what it means and what's changed. Just that feeling of I can't be bothered. Get on with it.
Well, I think the very fact that you're saying it means you are bothered.
Yes, maybe.
So it's not I don't think it's anything to do with your commitment to your role, but you've got things going on with your mum that seem to be much more important to some of the trivia, or will seem more trivial things that you're managing. I think we spoke last time about you've got quite some tricky members of your team, haven't you?
Yeah. Yes, I have. Yes,
some of the kind of issues that you resolve, and you work on a daily basis to manage, probably seem trivial compared to the situation with your mum, and that might be a little bit why you're sort of feeling can't be bothered with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just a sense of perspective, isn't it? You have a different perspective perhaps when you're dealing with more situations that are more that are bigger and more important. Yeah, and you don't want your energy to be sapped by unnecessary stuff. But ultimately, in a day at work, there's a lot of unnecessary stuff, isn't there?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with my job, on any given day, so much of it seems unnecessary. So much of it is a repeat of things that have happened before, the same problems, the same issues. You just sometimes feel you're in a complete cycle of the same things happening, unresolved.
It's often the nature of working with people, isn't it? That they all want a bit of you, and they all probably think that their point of view is the point of view that matters and is right, when yet you're looking at it from the bigger picture and thinking we've been here before.
yeah.
So
That's right.
I suppose, on the plus side, trying out the new role in a new place, you have a completely new set of people with no existing baggage for you.
Yes.
So in a way, that might be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, that's right. And I've been in a similar situation in the past where I've started again elsewhere. And although it's hard work, it is good to start again with relationships with people. And you can put into practice some of the things you've learnt without expectations of other people, I think, which is good. So yeah, that could really be a very positive thing. It's just having the energy to put in that initial work, I suppose. It's getting over
Which in a way might be a breathing space from the current work situation, because where you find you're on a bit of a treadmill perhaps of the same old things going around and around with people.
Yes.
There's nothing. We don't know what's on that treadmill, do we? When you go to a new place, so I guess you can make your own treadmill.
Yes. Yeah.
But
right.
It might be, whilst it will be challenging, it might give you a breathing space from some of that. It can become oppressive sometimes, can't it? When got that sort of cycle with people. Is there any one thing, if you could change with your current work situation, what would you say causes you the most stress? Is there one particular thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think it's probably that feeling of the job being too big for the time that you have. So that feeling of being out of control. Basically a workload that's too big for the time you've got and the energy you've got, and constantly shifting sounds can be very stressful. But I don't think I can change either of those things really. I think that's probably just the nature of the work, and I've got better at handling that. That's probably the biggest source of stress. So what could I change? That is a very, very good question. I mean, the obvious thing is work more at home, but I don't want to go down that route.
I don't think that would help your current situation, because it probably, that is the time when you want to be thinking about your family, isn't it? And that would just eat away at that even more. So personally, I don't think that would perhaps be particularly helpful. I'm thinking more in terms of, is there anything you could set aside or park or give to someone else as a project to do, and perhaps that
it's worth thinking about. I mean, yeah, that would be a good strategy. I think one of the big things maybe I need to learn that I haven't yet learnt is to leave stuff undone. So I need to be able to drop. I need to be able to let the plates crash a bit more sometimes. I mean, they crash anyway, because you can never keep them all in the air. But I have observed in some of my colleagues that they're much better than me at saying, right, I'm logging off, it's not done. It's not done. Doesn't matter. I'm not very good at that. So I think maybe I could get better at that. I think I probably am getting a bit better at that. So something I could maybe learn from other people. But it's not really in my nature.
No, and if that's how you like to work, it's sort of compromising your work integrity a little bit, isn't it? If you feel pressured into parking stuff that hasn't been finished. Some people do work like that, and some people find it quite easy to switch off and leave things and come back to it at another time. Do you start each day with a kind of to-do list today, what I need to get done?
Yes, I do, but that in itself can become a bit of a tyrant. Because I think it can stop me from being flexible. And a lot of the job, I mean, it's so difficult to describe the job to people who haven't been there, but a lot of the job is responding to crises, responding to just stuff that happens on a daily basis, not even necessarily crises, but just change on a daily basis. So whilst a job list is essential because every day there's going to be certain priorities, I can't let that dictate what I do all day, because then I'd be dropping a lot of the more immediate stuff that's, is essential. I've got much better at juggling that, and I review the to-do list at the end of every day before I go home. I do that, and then write another list for the next day, so I'm always going with a clear idea of what to do next. But I think it's the longer term to-dos that I find difficult to do, the sort of stuff that's very important but it isn't urgent. So prioritisation is always a challenge.
And you said a few minutes ago about you think a big source of stress is feeling out of control.
Yes.
And when you're doing a lot of managing crisis, it is out of your control, because you don't know what's coming, where it's coming from, how much time it's going to take, so many unknown factors. And as you try to manage that and control it, which you do, obviously successfully, because they wouldn't be considering you for continuing in the role if you didn't, so that's to your credit. I think whilst you do manage that successfully, it then means that other stuff doesn't get done, can't get done, because you're prioritising as you go, aren't you?
Yes,
scrabbling around to take control of what you can take control of. So I think it's not surprising that you feel a little bit, out of kilter, really, because you've got two big parts of your life that are currently out of your control in a lot of ways, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can't control the situation with your mum.
No.
You can just do the best you can.
Yes.
And you can't control a lot of what's coming your way at work. You can just do the best you can.
Yes.
Which you are doing, but I'm wondering if there's anything you could look at that might give you back a bit more sense of control.
Yes, I like that idea. I don't know what.
Perhaps that might be something to think about before we meet again.
Yeah.
If there's anything, I mean, I don't know all the elements of your role, but is there anything that could be perhaps, given to someone else to do, but framed as a challenge for them, as a development, so it doesn't just feel like you're palming off some of your workload. It might feel to them that, you're giving them a development opportunity, which to them might have the benefit of freeing up a bit of time.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yes, it'd be good to think about that, actually. Yeah, it would be good to think about that. I mean, nothing really springs to mind at the moment, but it's something that I could look at, and something that may evolve, certainly. That might make quite a difference. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think I think every day when you go to work in my sort of job, like you say, the challenges come thick and fast. Challenges come thick and fast, and you're right. You don't know what they're going to be. But you do know they're going to come.
Yeah.
You do know they're going to come, which kind of makes the job quite interesting, but also quite stressful and quite tiring. And you're right that you're not in control of those things. So yeah, it would be good to look at things I can control a bit better and whether I can pass things on to other people. I'll certainly think about that before the next session. I think that would be a good thing to think about. I can see that would help. It's just coming up with practical ideas of what that could be and how I could do it. But yeah, I think
might even be
that's
something
quite
that
a good strategy.
your team themselves might have ideas about things they would like to do.
Yes.
So that that perhaps could be a conversation with either individuals or when you're next having a team get together. Is there anything they would like to take on as it might even come from them. Perhaps then.
And I do have a great team at the moment. You know, it's settled and stabilised quite a bit. Got a few new members of staff who are an absolute asset and probably do have a lot more to give, particularly once they found their feet a little bit more. You know, there's a lot of potential there with the new staff, so maybe look at that. They're very enthusiastic. That's
nice then,
idea.
isn't it? That you've got that a little bit of a refreshed energy in your team.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Are those new members of staff taking up a lot of your time in terms of mentoring?
Yes, quite a bit. Quite a bit. I mean, yeah, it is mentoring, but it's also practical induction stuff, like the technology takes forever to get them set up on a lot of logins. And all the technology.
It's the way of the world.
So that takes ages. And they are needing quite a lot of support with processes, obviously. But in terms of being, you know, hard-working staff with a good attitude and a lot of capability, they're all excellent in that respect. So it's only going to be a fairly short matter of time before they're going to take off and be sort of, you know, really coping with everything pretty well in their own right. So it's an investment at the moment, really, and it will repay.
So that probably does feel a bit more that you are controlling that for the future of your team, which is good.
Yes, that's right.
And when you do your to-do list at the beginning of the day, do you actually write on it, deal with today's issues?
No, I don't.
Because that might be just putting a bit of a positive spin for yourself on recognising that, you know, it might sound a bit simplistic, but perhaps, you know, today's surprises, 1 hour or whatever, might seem a bit, you can tick it off at the end of each day then, can't you,
That's
for sure?
Always good. That's always good. Yes, I suppose it's recognising, isn't it, that it is going to happen and not letting it be a curveball, because you know it's going to happen. And it's accommodating it, isn't it? And kind of planning for the unexpected. Yeah, I take your point. That's a good point. Yeah.
It just might shift that balance a little bit in terms of how you feel, you know, about control of everything that seems to be spiralling out of control for you at the moment.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And a lot of it is attitude, isn't it? You know, attitude's very important, isn't it? And it is whether you frame things positively or negatively sometimes, isn't it? That is important. So.
Yeah, but it's not always easy to do. It's you know, sometimes when you step back and reflect, it's you can see that, but when you're in the thick of it, I think you just sort of go with the flow sometimes, don't you?
Yeah. So okay, I'll try and look at something like that for next time. See if I can come up with at least something that I can control at work in a positive way. That'd be a good thing to do. Yeah.
So is there anything else, you know, that might help restore a little bit of that balance for you with work, do you think?
I don't know. I think I've been very bad at taking adequate breaks at work, and I'm very conscious of that. So it's become the norm for me to not take a lunch break. Because I'm flexible working at the moment, my lunch break's quite short.
Mhm.
So it's difficult to find something meaningful to do in that break.
Mhm.
You know, it's half an hour and it's easy just to let it go and carry on working. And I'm very aware that that is a really bad strategy, and that is something I really could control if I wanted to. You know, that's just a matter of making a decision and being a bit more self-disciplined. So I think that's had quite a big impact on me, and it's completely counterproductive because it's easy to carry on with your emails over lunch, but then by 3:30, 4:00 I'm flagging and not giving money's worth. So it doesn't even work from a work point of view. I don't get more done doing it that way. I really don't. So I think that would be a good thing for me to get a handle on that and just be a bit more disciplined about taking a proper lunch break.
Even if it's only a short one.
Yes.
It's a bit of me time to
Yes.
regroup and refresh.
Yes.
Can you physically get out of the office at
Yes.
that during the lunch break, even though it's shorter?
I can do that if I want to, yeah, and that does make a big difference. So that's something else I could look at. I feel like I've perhaps lost some of my support relationships at work, so you know, I probably don't have as many people that I would confide in at work as I used to. Well, I don't. So I think that's also quite a big impact. Whilst many of the staff are supportive and lovely, and you know, and I can talk to them about most things, I think I've probably lost some of the close friendships I had at work. So maybe I need to work on sort of replacing one or two of those a little bit. Might be another thing I could look at, but they can't be forced. That's the only thing.
No, it's different when you take on a management role, isn't it? That
Yeah.
In many ways, because you're wearing a different hat.
Yeah.
People that you might have already spoken to in the past as peers, especially when you're in the same workplace, you can't really talk to them in the same way, can you?
No.
So whilst you might still be friendly with them, they're looking to you for leadership, aren't they?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I don't really want to know about your problems.
No, that's right.
You've got to sort theirs, don't you? So it's
that's right.
I think it's it can be difficult adapting to that role. I suppose going to the new place, you won't have already worn the hat as a peer, will you?
No.
So you know, but I think it's probably a good thing to have somebody that you can confide in. Whether, I don't know if there's any other people on the same level as you now that you know you might be able to talk to more, or somebody else in, you know, another place of work that you know perhaps. But everybody probably needs a sounding board at some point, don't they? Otherwise you feel very isolated. How is your management, your line management for support currently?
Currently okay, but that's been very greatly disrupted. So that has been. I'm glad you mentioned that. Actually, that's a good question. That has been a really big issue over the past 16 months, because that's not been in place a lot of the time effectively. So I have felt very, very unsupported in my role, and I think I've only once had somebody ask me if I'm okay and how I'm doing in it. Once. So that's not really how I think things should operate. I think that should be a regular conversation with your line manager. Maybe just a brief conversation, but it should be a regular conversation, and maybe even formalised into, you know, a regular meeting every once a month or 3 months or whatever. But no, very little support. In terms of sort of a supportive attitude from line management, I'd say that's been all right. But practical support in the role, very little. But that's been because of the disruption across the whole department. That couldn't really be helped, and it's been just mayhem really. So, you know, that's nobody's fault, but it's not helped at all.
No, because you've been isolated in a new role,
Yes.
sort of left to figure it all out for
Yes.
yourself, really,
Yes.
which is
Yes, that's right. That's right.
where you're doing exactly the opposite with your new staff. You are
Yes.
supporting them and mentoring them and,
Yes.
and you know, helping them to get to a point where they feel confident in the role,
Yes. Yeah.
which hasn't happened for you, and
No,
a
not
sense that you don't want to apportion any blame for that
No.
because of the general situation,
Mm.
but it still doesn't alter the fact that it's had a big impact
Yeah.
On-
Absolutely.
on
Absolutely.
on how you feel.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're changing for a little while, aren't you? Is that
Mm.
is that quite soon?
Sorry. The change.
Changing to the new place.
Yes, that's in a few weeks.
Okay, so you've only got a relatively short period of time.
Mm.
Is it worth having? Is your current manager in post permanently?
No, I don't have a permanent line manager, and I haven't had one for a long time.
Is it something that you could address? Could you talk to whoever is in post now and say, could you have set up a touch base fortnightly, weekly, even if it's only 5 minutes with a coffee, penciled into the diaries, just to see what's gone well, what's not gone well, and kind of force the issue a little bit without being critical, maybe?
Yes, possibly. Yeah, possibly.
Because it does seem to me that you would benefit from somebody that you could. I mean, you might want to even discuss ways that you've handled issues with members of your team and what advice they might give for that and what support they can give, and chat about perhaps some of the other things that are on your to-do list, and if they can support you to do them in a more time effective way, perhaps, or
yeah. I think those conversations do happen and that support does happen, but there's no formalised sort of structure, and I think if I knew there was some sort of formalised way of somebody checking on me and looking out for me, it would be a really helpful thing for me. So yeah, I think I could probably initiate that, and that might be quite useful. Because it's good to reflect, isn't it? It's really good to reflect on what's happened. Just take time out, reflect, get somebody else's take on it, particularly somebody who's more experienced.
And sometimes it can just clarify your own thinking and reassure you that what you're doing is going down the right path, isn't it? That might restore a little bit more of that sense of control. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, a few things to work on there.
Well, hopefully it's all, they're all strategies that will help you to, just relieve a bit of the pressure at the moment, because you are under a huge amount of pressure, which is, pretty much 24/7 really, isn't it? Because when you've got elderly parents that you're concerned about, I think every time your phone goes, there are thoughts spring to your mind that something might have happened or whatever. So that's an ongoing stress all the time, isn't it? And then it's not like, I know you say the kids have grown up and left, but they still need you when they need you, don't they?
Yes, one's in darkest Peru at the moment by herself, so yes.
So there's another worry then, isn't there? Yeah. With your mum hat on this time, you've got you're wearing a lot of hats, and they're all very, very kind of demanding on you pressure-wise at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
So where ideally then would you like to get to in terms of work? I don't mean in terms of promotion, climbing the tree and all of that, in terms of getting your job satisfaction back.
Yeah. I would like to get rid of the feeling that I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Because that's not good and it's not me. So I'd like to get rid of that. I would like to be I suppose I would like to be confident that I've got enough energy and personal resources to cope with the demands of work, because sometimes I wonder whether I've just got it in me in terms of energy. I'd like that to happen. The rest, I feel like I'm improving and learning on, sort of managing things at work and controlling them. But I think it would be good if I was quite specific in, you know how you have like your own personal development plans?
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the things that we've mentioned there that I can actually do, I think it'd be good for me to actually maybe write out or set myself little goals
Mm-hmm.
of the things that I can do, like maybe like we mentioned, a bit more delegating, just like you say, be more proactive for my end in sort of getting line management support. Those are quite clear things I could do
Mm-hmm.
that are within my control. Maybe if I make myself, I don't know, a little plan and actually tick those off and just feel like I'm slowly, one little thing at a time, getting to grips with some things that are niggling at me, rather than just let them sort of mull around and spiral a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will give me a bit more of a sense of control. And then I suppose I could look back in 6 weeks, 3 months and think, okay, well, I have tackled that, and I've tackled that, and I've tackled that, and it's improved. Maybe only a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully the cumulative effect of some of those improvements would be over time quite significant for me. So I think maybe I just need to be a bit more proactive rather than just sort of go, it's all out of control. I actually think, well, what can I do? What are the little things I can do that will make a difference?
That's a really positive approach, and will be empowering because you're driving it.
Yeah, that's
then,
right.
aren't you? That's
right. Yeah.
Even if you say that, like you say, there might only be a small improvement. It's an improvement that was created by you.
Yeah,
by
yeah,
your
exactly.
efforts.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that will just shift my sort of focus a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will make quite a big difference. It's no magic wand, and it's not going to change a lot of things as such, but it will change a succession, hopefully, of small things that might make quite a significant difference. So, yeah.
Because you've got your situation isn't going to change in the very short term, is it, work-wise?
No.
To suddenly improve.
No, exactly.
So,
exactly.
It's having a look at survival strategies that you can drive that will make it better.
Yes.
I think from a positive point of view, the very fact that you're feeling uncomfortable, that you can't be bothered, you feel you can't be bothered, actually shows that you can. because it's that's a niggle. If you've got a niggle page, that's a niggle, isn't it? I think that's just how you're feeling, because you're a bit swamped.
Yes.
With everything, and and things that you might have ordinarily tried to approach with 100%, commitment and drive.
Yes.
Now don't seem that important and worth that 100% commitment and drive.
You hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is okay. Cut yourself a bit of slack at the moment. Give yourself a pat on the back for what you are dealing with and how you're coping with everything, and so I think there's a few positive things to look at, isn't there, going forwards?
Yes.
And see how that does make a difference.
Yes.
Is your manager the sort of person you can talk to as a you were talking about feeling a bit isolated, and there's one thing having a kind of line management support in a formal way, but are there any peers at your level that you could have more informal support from?
Yes.
That might be.
Yes, definitely. Yes, yes, definitely.
Could it be that perhaps if you make a conscious effort to take a lunch break, you maybe go somewhere with somebody and have a coffee or a chat or a walk or somewhere not in the office and not in the staff room where you're going to get bombarded with more of today's desperate crises that need sorting by you.
Yes.
Might just consciously give you that little bit of space.
Yes. That's a good idea.
And when you leave work and you get home, what tends to happen then?
Nothing much.
Nothing much. How do you switch off if you can?
Probably just doze on the settee and watch telly. It depends how tired I am. On a good day, I will do a few jobs when I get home if they're sitting down ones. I've got a few hobbies that I might just spend a bit of time on. But I'm probably only good for about an hour or an hour and a half, and then I just have no concentration or attention span or energy. So
you're shattered.
That's the point at which I just kind of splodge on the settee, which I don't like doing because it's not it's not a great way to spend an evening really. But sometimes I go out, but not often.
Yeah.
So I would like to alter that. To me, that would be one of the measures of success, is whether I can make a bit more of my evenings.
So definitely not doing work in the evening.
No,
but
no.
doing something that gives you a little bit of pleasure and satisfaction.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever that might be.
At the moment, they're a bit of a write-off in evenings. Not every evening, but too many of them are a bit of a write-off.
Yeah, so that probably feels like the time that you have got is wasted.
Yes.
Because you're not
quite often
making.
Sometimes, yeah.
But sometimes we do just need to rest.
Yes, true.
Which is no bad thing, I suppose. But yeah, so maybe perhaps if you can factor in a bit of time, you are still keeping it all going though, even though you're feeling like you're having to force yourself with your physical activity and your the hobbies that you like doing. You are still able to do that, which is a good thing, isn't it?
Yes, I am, and I won't let go of any of that easily. And
no.
It will be sheer gritted teeth determination that I'll keep those things going if necessary, even if I don't feel like it. So it would be an alarming day indeed when I really gave up on all of those. I'm not there yet.
Which is a good thing.
I won't get there. I don't intend to get there.
No, well there you go. There's a lot of positive energy there, so that's a good thing that you recognise that's good for you, and you know you need to keep that going. Going forwards.
Sorry, that's my phone. I'll just.
Don't worry, it's fine.
I'll turn it off. It's a cold call.
Oh, no problem. So I think just to kind of sum up the kind of things that you might want to do before we next meet.
Yeah.
You've got a few ideas now that we've talked about that might just help to shift the balance a little bit, so that you feel like you're driving the ship a bit more. So let's just recap. One is lunch breaks.
Yes.
Do something with them. What do you like doing at lunch, as well as eat, obviously? But
I mean, go to the gym. You can do something in the gym for 10-15 minutes. That's always doable. Or a walk.
Yeah.
Just a walk out.
Or spend some time with somebody.
Yeah.
That you might just, even if you're not talking about work stuff, it might be just a chance to do that. Just exactly that. So a conscious effort to try and not sit at the computer at lunchtime. Yeah. And we spoke about what else is going to be high on the list, things to do. Some perhaps positive strategies about how you can involve your team in relieving some of your workload, but putting a spin on it that perhaps get them to drive it. If there's have a think about anything that they can do. Have a chat to your line manager about just some space to touch base and list any concerns, and sometimes things that seem massive when we're feeling swamped, when you talk to someone about them, there can be an easy way through.
That's true.
Recognise that on your to-do list, dealing with crises and firefighting is a big achievement every day. If you put the fire out, even if it means something's got to get parked onto tomorrow's to-do list.
That's right.
Perhaps.
That's right. And maybe just write myself a few personal goals so I can tick a few things off that way and see some progress.
I think so. If you put pen to paper, I think it will be. You can actually, it's like a bit of a contract with yourself, isn't it? And you can actually see that you're doing it because you want to do it, not because it's happening to you. I think perhaps we'll meet again before you go to take on your new role. If you would like to.
I think that would be useful.
And reflect on how things are going a bit.
Okay. Yeah, that has been quite helpful today. Yeah. I suppose feeling, I said at the beginning I was feeling worse. I suppose, I don't know, is that a normal part of the counselling process?
It can be, everybody's
Yeah.
different. It can be, sometimes things are sitting in our subconscious that we haven't actually voiced out loud, and when we do, it can make them seem a bit more real and a bit more daunting, perhaps, initially, sometimes, because we've almost put a lid on them in some ways. But I think now you're meeting it head on.
Yeah, I have to say I'm feeling a bit better now after, there's some quite specific things there that I can actually do. So that has made me feel a bit better. Yeah, so see how I am when we next meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
What should we say, a fortnight?
Yeah.
Fortnight's time?
Yeah, I think that'd be about right. Then I can get going on some of those things, can't I? At least get them started.
And we can have a chat about what's worked, what hasn't worked.
Yeah.
How you're feeling at the next bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Well, thank you, Sue. Thanks for allowing me to record this as well.
That's okay.
I look forward to when we next meet. Hope things keep going okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And don't forget you're doing well.
Thank you.
You're managing it.
Thank you. That's been helpful. Thank you.